In this video, I'm going to talk about the different types of machine applique stitches that you can do on your quilts. I do a lot of applique patterns, and I thought it would be good for you to know how different stitches look on your applique projects so you can decide which ones work best for your quilts. This is just a straight stitch applique. So all I did was go around the edges with my machine and just stitched along the edge. This is raw edge applique. So what might happen over time is these edges might start to fray. You want to make sure you have a really good fusible to help prevent that. Or maybe you want it to have kind of a rougher edge, and doing the straight stitch is going to give you the look that you want. Sometimes you might have to do straight stitch if your machine only does straight stitching. So if you don't have a machine that does all the fancy decorative stitches, you will have to do straight stitching for your applique. Now the fraying really isn't an issue if this ends up being a quilt that's not going to be washed very often. So straight stitching is a good basic way to applique your pieces to your background. The other type of stitching is blanket stitching, and you can see here it's where the stitches come along the edge and then go in just a little bit, and you determine the length and the width of these stitches when you are stitching them. This is a great stitch if you're wanting something a little more decorative. If you're wanting your stitches to show a little bit more, it's a great stitch if you are wanting it to look more traditional or a little more handmade or hand pieced, because typically with hand applique, one of the traditional stitches is to do a hand blanket stitch. So it's a very traditional kind of decorative stitch that you can do on your project. It can be a little difficult to sometimes get around really small pieces, but if you shorten your length and your width, then you should be able to get around smaller bits. So you can see how my little stitches here, they get a little bit smaller for this than they are here for this. So that is the blanket stitch that you can do for your applique. And then the third stitch that I often do is the zigzag stitch. Now this stitch is exactly what it says it is. It's literally zigzagging back and forth. You can adjust how far apart those zigzags are. When you put them really close together, that's what creates that satin stitch applique that you often see. It's a really quick way to put your applique pieces on your background. It gives a slightly decorative edge, and it is a little bit easier. Like you can see this mermaid, her hair was pretty complicated. So to just do zigzags around all these little curves was a lot easier than trying to line up perfect little blanket stitches. She also would have been really easy with a straight stitch, but the zigzag does hold your fabric down just a little bit better, and there's less possibility of fraying. So those are the three stitches that I use. Of course, there are lots of other decorative stitches that you can do when you're doing your applique, but those are my three favorites. If you're looking for tutorials on how to do the blanket or the straight stitch for your applique, just look below and I have linked those video tutorials for you. All right, happy stitching and go make something beautiful.